Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Welcome to the Blue Collar Barbarians podcast, brought to you by the Blue Collar Barbarians Network. And today I got a very, very unique guest for you. I'm bringing you a fitter from originally California, coming up in the mob, the Dirty 38. Was that right, Chris? What was that?
That's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
My boy Chris McKelvy out of the Bay Area, normally a fitter who just moved and relocated his family up into Idaho for a better life. I don't blame you. California is falling in the hole, but we'll digress from that. Before we get started on this show, before I really get to let you guys know Chris, this guy is a killer, and I can't wait for him to share a story with you. I want to take a minute to say thank you for today's show sponsor. That's going to be Backcountry Archery and Tier 1 Kinetics. Backcountry Archery is out of White Salmon, Washington. Zane is a wizard when it comes to bows. He's the guy that's been setting up my bow personally for me for the last 4 years now. I've been through 3 different prime bows with him. I've had him set them up. Every single one of them I've shot. Every single one of them killed an elk with. And to be honest with you, I've had to do very, very little adjustments year to year. I mean, my bow is just dialed. So go ahead and check out Backcountry Archery. Zane is absolutely a wizard. And then my friend Ben with Tier 1 Kinetics. You guys know what's up there. Tactical tools for your needs. That website has got everything you could imagine on it. You just need to go dive in. You even got night vision options nowadays for those of you that really want to get funky with the tactical world. So please go check out our friends and those that make it possible for us to do this show. That being said, enough about sponsors. Chris McKelvy, I cannot wait to hear your story. Thank you so much for taking the time with us tonight. It's a little bit later, but we're getting it in and we're just grinding through podcasts. So Chris, thank you so much, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, you're from you came from the Dirty 38, little mob down in the Bay Area that runs the fitter, making insane money. And now you've traded that for quality of life, which we'll get to all of that. But you mind telling us a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself to the audience, man.
Yeah. Chris McKelvy, like you said, started out in local 38. I had no idea, never saw myself doing trade work, coming up. It was definitely not mentioned to me by my high school guidance counselor. I think like a lot of us that do trade work, I was not a scholastic overachiever. Actually going into my junior year, my guidance counselor thought it would be easier for me to perform at school if I had less school to concentrate on. So I was the only junior that had a half day, which ultimately ended up me starting my senior year like way behind in credits and having to, really get after it and grind to get out on time. And actually, I ended up finishing early because I didn't like the path that they proposed. It was supposed to be, full-time schedule plus night classes and then summer school and stuff at the JC. And they're like, you'll finish halfway through the summer after your senior year. I was like, what if I get done early? What if I just get out of here and start working? Worked at had a telemarketing job for a summer, that summer between my junior and senior year, 4-hour shift, longest days I've ever worked in my life. I'm not a cubicle guy. Worked in fast food for a while, did 2 years just shy of 2 years at In-N-Out. Then I did like 7 years working grocery and just kind of had enough of retail and that whole the customer's always right aspect of things, and went to WowTech. I wanted to build rock crawlers. Found out that was a really hard industry to get into. Yeah, it was a good experience. It was a little more expensive than it should have been, and the name that I left there with on the piece of paper wasn't worth what I paid for it, because they were transitioning. They sold, it was a financial grab thing. They sold the name, and it was basically just cram as many people through as possible. So by the time I got out of there, it was like, oh, you came from WowTech, huh? Yeah, we don't need you. So kind of spent like 5 years doing restoration work because it was the only thing close I could find to do, and not the best job ever. Worked for a guy that he and I didn't see eye to eye, and it was probably the worst job I've ever had, honestly.
Really? Worse than even the fast food industry?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was.
Wow.
It was. Yeah. It just, he and I, it was about the work environment. I mean, I enjoyed the work. It was one of those things where if I could work for a different guy, and even at the wages I was making, if I had a trust fund, I'd have probably stayed. But neither of those were happening. So ended up at a general fab shop, and that was kind of my first taste of like, seemed more like trade work. It was just working with a bunch of goofballs, you know what I mean, building whatever. I mean, the first day I was there, I was uh, welding big pads onto a tow truck boom, the preacher's cross, those, the drag pads for when they shove that thing under cars. And I mean, anything and everything that rolled through the door, just from, big structural stuff to they did some off-road stuff there, whatever happened. And then, you know, construction based industry, they slowed down. And ultimately, I, he and I don't get along, but I owe it to my brother-in-law. I was working on a car one day, and one of my old Land Cruiser that I had, and he's like, "So you weld, huh?" I was like, "Yeah." And he showed me one of his check stubs. He said, "Would you weld for this?" I was like, "I would kill somebody for that money."
I take it,
And
was he a union hand or something then?
yeah, he was actually the shop foreman for the company that I did my whole career out of 38 with.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so like I said, he and I we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but ultimately he kind of showed me the light, and that was the path, man. I mean, it was so 38's it's it's a tough gig to get into, right? Because of the pay. I mean, when I left 38, we were 75 on the check for a journeyman. So, you figure, foreman, GF, all those, you start adding those 15-20% onto that. A guy could make a killing, even at California, cost of living rates. You can make a pretty comfortable living on that money. So it's hard to get into. Their test cycle is every 2 years to get into the apprenticeship, and if you don't get pulled in through your test scores, you time out and you got to do it again. And I was at that like a year and 9 months, waiting on getting pulled in. And I just kind of started getting into BA's ear. I was like, "What's a guy got to do to join this club, man?" You know what I mean? Like, what do I like? I was ready to buy in as a welder. That's basically the route I was going to go, because I had to hurry up and make it happen. I was late to the game. I was like 31, I think, when I got pulled in. So, you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
was
I was
kind of
about to
looking at,
ask, where were you at? Because you said you had 7 years in grocery, you had a
yeah,
couple years in fast food, and then you went back to school. I didn't know you went
yep,
to Biotech. That's cool that you like you kind of got this roadmap of like, try this, try that, and that resonates with like a lot of our guests, and I'm sure a lot of our audience did, because a lot of these guys, it's not one way to get where you go. It's literally
no,
try something, make a little course adjustment, try something again, like, this is a little bit closer, but still, So that's really cool. So 31 years old, you get in the BA's ear and you say, like, listen, dude, like, time's ticking. I'm not
let
getting
me
any
in, dude.
younger.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do I get into this? So what's it like getting into the trades, like going into an apprenticeship at 31?
It was different. It's funny because there's a kid that started, the same time I started class. First night, I don't know anybody. I wasn't working. So I started working before I started going to school, just because of the timing on when they rolled me in. And all the guys I was working with, none of them were. There was one other apprentice, but so again, 38's kind of different. There's a split hall. There's the North Bay hall, and then there's the hall in San Francisco where the locals hubbed. And he was out of the city, so I didn't go to class with him at all. So I didn't know anybody. It wasn't nobody I worked with anything. So it was just like, who are all these guys? And there's a kid in there that was like fresh out of high school, 19 years old, and I asked him, I was like, "How old are you?" I was like, "I could be your dad." Like, literally, like, I could be your dad right now. Like, so it was weird, but like, and again, it's most of us, I think, that are probably listening to this and doing this kind of work, not scholastic overachievers. So it was like, all right, I got to go to school again. But again, you look at it, and it's 5 years, right? 5 years, and at that point, you do the math. That's a small chunk of time in comparison to the roadmap I've already been on. I worked grocery for longer than that, and it's
For
gonna
real. Yeah.
it's gonna teach you the skills that you're gonna need. And like I said, I knew what that check looked like at the end of the rainbow. So you do the math, and every 6 months you're gonna get a bump. You're gonna be a percentage closer to that, and it's all gonna be you know it's all gonna be good when it's done. And I mean, it was again, we're a bunch of hooligans, right? Like we're a
Yeah.
bunch of, ruffians, and so it's not like not like high school or even like JC classes that I tried to take along the way. It's, a lot more lenient because even your instructors are dudes that they've already worked a full day, and they're the same type of dudes. So it's not, you know, I don't know. There's a lot of shenanigans in class and all that stuff. So it
I could
wasn't
only
nearly as bad.
imagine.
Yeah.
I could only imagine. So let me pause right there for a second with you because there's something really cool here that I want to point out, especially for our audience. This show is also geared towards as people are looking for new homes, right? Like, especially as the white collar world is dying, there's people that are interested in blue collar. There's kids that are realizing 3 or 4 years in that their degree that they're after doesn't mean shit. It's put them in debt, that are going to be looking at getting into the trades and stuff like this. And I know we're going to get into some more of this in the Q&A, but let's talk really quick about that 5-year plan, because a lot of people are so short-sighted, bro. And you just nailed it on the head when you said, like, I thought about it and I was like, 7 years. I did 7 years of grocery. I did more in grocery than what this will take me. And then at the end of the rainbow is X, right? Like, and for our audience, let's just say, without getting into specifics here or whatnot, but let's just say that at the end of the rainbow, for what he's talking about the union of unions. So he's being humble in what he's talking about. He's talking about guys that journey out that are doing $250,000 a year, that are doing
Yep.
200,000, maybe even 300. Some of them. You're talking about guys that are. So you're talking about going from making groceries money or fabrication shop money at $25 an hour to like literally tripling your income. And that's on a 5-year plan. So like he said, you might not start there, but if you knew without a shadow of a doubt, all I got to do is show up every day for 5 years and give my best effort for 40 to 80 hours a week, right? Depending on what you're doing. Like, I don't want to lie to you guys. Sometimes it can be a shit show, but there's 40 hours is pretty common as well.
Oh
And
yeah.
if you could give yourself just 40, even just 40 for 5 years, is it worth $250,000 to you folks? Because that
Easy
beats the
math,
hell
man.
out of a $40,000 a year job. It beats the
Yeah.
hell out of coming out of high school or college for some of you guys being $100,000 in debt or $150,000 in debt, making $30,000 a year at an entry level position that caps out at 50 when you could start at 60, 80, 70K even in some of these unions as a term one apprentice. So talk to me about like that plan for just a second. We won't spend a bunch of time on this, dude, because I want to really pick your brain, hear more of your story here. But like, help our audience out. Give them some feel right here, bro. Because I mean, you're like me. I think like this too. Like, but
Yeah.
let's talk about long term effect versus short term, right?
So it's you'll see, like I said, I was 31 when I started, and
Yeah.
sitting right next to me is a kid that literally finished high school, that the last classroom he was in, and it was,
Yeah, about to be balling. By the
before
way,
that
little does
summer.
he know.
What's that?
I said about to be balling. By the way, little does he
Oh
know.
yeah. No, he's doing good, dude. I check up on him on social every once in a while, and I'm like, I'm I've got some envy towards that, right? But like at the same time, if I had that money at that age, I'd probably got myself in some trouble. You know what I mean? Like I had some maturing to do. So it's for the better that my path took me a little longer to get it figured out. But you don't have to know. I mean, pick a trade that fits you, right? Like
Yeah.
if you have any idea what that is, which, again, like I didn't know there was even any of these options. I didn't know the pipe fitters existed until I saw that check stub, and I was like, wait, what do you do? Like, I thought it was all plumbers. You know what I mean? Like, I already turned this down once. I don't want to be a plumber, but do some research, find out what trades are available near you or whatever, or if you're willing to relocate and jump onto it. But you don't have to know anything. There's guys, we get brand new green guys that, you know what I mean? Like, they'll teach you all that stuff. There's usually in first year, there's introduction to hand tools and how to use them and care of, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to know how to do this stuff. Like, again, I'd never even heard the word hydronics when I signed up for the apprenticeship, but I have I have a mechanical aptitude. I worked on cars. You know what I mean? Like that stuff, tools, use of tools, power tools, hand tools, all that stuff, that wasn't new to me, but I didn't know anything about piping systems or any of that stuff. They teach you everything you need to know. As long as
Yeah.
you can pay attention, you know, at the end of a workday, you can go sit down and, read a book, pay attention, watch a PowerPoint presentation, ask questions, and just absorb as much as you can and try to figure it out as you go. I mean, and really you're going to learn most of the stuff you need to know on the job. It's rough a little bit, you know what I mean, when you're brand new because you're a gopher,
Go
you
get
know what I mean?
this. Yep.
They know that you don't know anything yet and you're going to be running, you know what I mean? You're going to get your cardio in, but you're if you show the drive, you show that you want to learn, you'll get and you might, I mean, the first journeyman you get stuck with, you roll into apprenticeship, he might not want to teach you anything, but you'll find those guys, you know what I mean? Like you'll get the guy that knows things, and as long as you are asking the right questions, he's going to see the value of that, and that you aren't just the guy that's there to be neck down, and he's going to teach you things, and it's going to
For
help
sure.
you. And a lot of it is, I mean, you'll you'll find yourself in the right place at the right time one time, and it'll catapult your whole path.
Yeah. Wow. That's very well said, man. And again, I apologize for interrupting you there, but
Anna,
I
all
wanted
good.
people to understand how important it is to realize that when you think like 5 years, yes, it is kind of a long time, but 5 years is nothing in the blink of what your life is. Like
Yeah,
legitimately, I'm not even the same person I was 5 years ago, so it is very much so not the same person. But like, I mean, it is a long time, but it's not, dude. I mean, it's
no,
5 years. I mean, I bought this house brand new on Intel, and I've been here 3 years already. And it seems like I think I'm like a year and a half in. Like time. And the older you get, the more you appreciate time for what it is. But I'll
yep,
digress on that, Chris, and let you get back to your story. So let's pick up like you're 36, 37, 36, just now journeying out.
yeah. So it I've been, I think my career path, I got lucky. I've seen and done a lot, right? Just since I've been in the union, I got a lot of weird, random experience just in life in general. So it's kind of this the whole my whole union career, like it, like I said, the restoration thing beforehand, and like all the other stuff I did. I've always seen how good the union is. You know what I mean? And I've been grateful for it, and I think that's been a big part of helping me get to where I am, and getting some recognition along the way. Is like you get a lot of people that take things for granted, and it's just like, you know what I mean? They just kind of have that attitude, and like I know what this has helped me do. You know what I mean? And what I've been able to provide my family with because of it, and I'm grateful for it, and I will show that, every chance I get, you know, to the people
Yeah.
I'm working for. So that's a huge thing. I mean, yeah. So you talked about, at the point of journey out, I journeyed out December of 19, right before the whole world changed, right? And it was everybody joked. So the company that I worked for in 38 was ACO, and they were one of the. I mean, I'm sure up in your area, you've probably seen ACO hard hats and stuff, right?
No.
Is that familiar? Okay. They're generally speaking, I mean, in Southern California and the Bay Area, they're usually they were the first stringers, right? Like Southland kind of they had second fiddle, all the other big jobs that we didn't have, and I know they've got some stuff. I think there's a shop up in Seattle and pretty much up and down the West Coast, as far as I know. You know what I mean? They're pretty big presence, but everybody joked that like they had a journeyman release program, so they at any point in time they employed 2/3 of the fitters and plumbers out of our local.
Oh
So
wow.
you know what I mean? It just you need manpower, you need hands on a job, right? But a lot of guys are those neck down guys, right? And there was a time when that was me until I made some life changes and kind of realized that like I wasn't really firing on all cylinders and wasn't giving even close to 100%, but consistent, you know what I mean? And you can be that guy. You can, like I said, every job needs hands, but like if you want to if you want to be more than just a hand, Like you can't just be neck down, you gotta be hungry and like I said, be grateful and do a little more. But so I was kind of nervous, you know what I mean? Coming into, being a journeyman and having actual expectations and having to know things and not being able to play that apprentice card. But everything got weird, like I said, you know what I mean? Like with COVID and like they shut down the city. Everybody, if you weren't on a job that they deemed essential, which was like I think there was a water treatment plant, like two other projects going on where guys actually stayed at work. Our whole hall was on the books for 2 months until they sorted everything out, and then we all started going back to work. And it, you know, again, like the kind of the choices and the changes that I made, like we everything went back to work. We finished the jobs basically that we were on, but like the I mean, the COVID changed everything in San Francisco, right? It's all like super techy, like everything there is, high rise buildings and a lot of just tenants moving in and out and changing things for, things that are ultimately people realize with the Rona that you could telecommute that. You don't have to be in the city for that. Like you could do that from your house, wherever your house is, you know what I mean? So a lot of these buildings, like they didn't have the need to be occupied anymore. So they're just like work just kind of stops. Like I said, like we worked through the projects that were on the books and like things got real weird. And like it was basically every Thursday was who's getting checks. And I made it through August, August of 22. I got laid off, and the day I got laid off, my super brought out 14 other checks, and it was like seven foremen, me, you know what I mean, a couple other journeymen, and a handful of apprentices. And I thought at that rate, I made it through 2 years of who's getting laid off on Friday, and that I kind of like. I mean, it was stressful, right? But like at the same time, you just stay focused, keep working, and I took it as a huge compliment that I made that the day that I did finally have to get laid off, like there was I mean, foremen and trucks getting canned, and so and that was the beginning of the search in my head. I was like, all right, I got to do something. Like this isn't like it's not stable, right? Like which I'd never seen before. Where we went from having to turn down overtime to like wondering when the next job was going to be, and talking to BAs and there's work on the horizon, all this stuff, and but it just didn't really never saw it kick off. And then really the straw that kind of broke the camel's back, which was thankfully my wife saw it, and that was all it took. Was they talked about putting the COVID vax on the requirements for kindergartners to go into school, and that was our oldest was right at that age, so he was going to be starting kindergarten the next year. And she said, we're going. And I said, say less. So I jumped on a plane, came up here, got in some ears, met the BA, and the rest is now we're in Meridian,
living a new life. So I'm
yeah.
gonna backtrack a little bit there because you journeyed out right before COVID, which is for the guys working in the industry, they know exactly what that means. You went from essentially you journeyed out in 1919 was my 1920 probably was my best year ever. Granted, the beginning of COVID, or what not, but like I was on a big Intel job. I mean, I worked, I don't know, 3,300 hours or some shit like that year, dude. I mean, I just crushed for up here, just crushed. But it went from you couldn't find a body. Like literally, they were not necessarily the crane side, but you would all your buddies that are foremen running work for the carpenters or fitters or the plumbers or electricians, even our Sparky friends, like everybody you talk to is like, dude, we can't even find fucking bodies. We can't find parts guys. We can't find
Yeah, they just need
the
hands.
little material handlers. Like we just need people that will with a pulse essentially, like, and it'd be funny because as a crane operator, everybody wants, well, almost a lot of people like, oh, I would be interested in doing that. And they always ask you, especially when you're on the ground or whatnot, like, oh, what do you think I could do that? And so we actually had like one of the Sparky material handlers I think he ended up actually getting in our union as he's an apprentice, but he was like, I think actually he ended up working for me at a different job as like running an Alamac for me when I was the field superintendent and crane foreman. But it's funny because like that's how it went from like you could literally like trade crafts if you wanted to at the time frame you were talking about, or you could be like, you guys are busy. Like, okay, cool. I'll quit at noon and I'll be hired by 3. Going to work for somebody else the next day on the same job even. And to what you're describing, what people don't understand is like in 21 and shit like that, it went from that to like, I don't know when the next crane is going to go up, or I don't know if they're going to finish this project, or everything that they had on the books after this just got pushed with a indefinite start date, or lenders backed out, right? And then they did do that scary thing that if you want to get the Fauci ouchie, they would take your job even.
Yeah, things got kind of weird like that, where there was some like city jobs, and it was like, you know, they have to ask you, and it was like yes, no, or decline to answer, right? And like anything other than yes, you got it, was you weren't eligible for the job. And like, so then they're playing that game too, and it's like, you know, you start to look at it like, shit, do I need to get this thing just so I can keep, you know what I mean, keep paying bills? But like I'm 100% happy that I made the, you know, again, you gotta
do what is best for you. We're not talking trash to anybody that decided to go with that. That's totally fine. That's neither here nor there. But the point is, you also being a barbarian, you need to have a backbone. So whatever you decide to do, roll with that. Stick with your gut. Stick with what makes you you. And don't get bulldozed over just because fucking Central Command says this is what we need to do or what we think you should do. Or just get it so that, listen, dude, I'm not a pushover. I can make my own decisions for myself as a grown-ass man. Just because I work for you doesn't mean you own what happens to me or what decisions I make that affect the rest of my family as well. So what a scary time to – it's cool that you made it through all that to like 22, especially the end of 22, where it's like, oh, there's work kind of picking back up. But for our audience, dude, California died during COVID. Like that – so, like, when we're talking, like, Portland somewhat was recovered in 22, somewhat. Like, it's been slow still. A lot of stuff, like, iffy, especially this year. Like, all the jobs for, like, 24, essentially, not all, but the majority of them that aren't government funded, the investors have pulled their money. Those jobs have been shut. I mean, it's fucking scary right now. It's like, people are gripping their money, bro. Quite an interesting time to be going through again. You know, especially this fast. It's been like 2 years since we just went through this same kind of shit, and now we're back. But what people need to understand is like California did not, especially San Francisco, it did not recover from this. And we even saw this in Portland, where you'd have buildings built and nobody is moving into them. I mean, I built a 100%. Building that I watched them take the tower crane down out of, like, I don't know, 6 months or 3 months before my crane went up, the crane came out, that building was done. And then by the time that we were taking cranes down 14 months or 15 months later on that, this top like 3 floors of a 6-story of office space stuff were still like nobody is renting it.
Yeah.
So was that happening a lot in the Bay too?
One of the last jobs I was on, the one I was on when everything shut down, it was a building, 2 buildings for Uber. I think one of them was like a 7 and an 11 story, which was weird to me. I'm like, why does Uber need? I don't pretend that I understand why things are built the way they're built or for who they're for. Yeah. I don't understand why Uber needs 2, mid-rise buildings, a 7 and an 11 story. One of them has never been occupied. My buddy sent me, one of my fitter buddies from, still out of 38, sent me a link to an article online. They're trying to sell one of them and it has never been occupied. That one building can house 1,500 employees and it has never been occupied.
Yeah. That's crazy, right? And that's in California, in Silicon Valley, in the tech area of the world at the time. Austin now, I would say, is the new tech central. But thanks, Elon.
And it's still weird down there, honestly. Like one of the same dude that sent me that link, like that, he was on that job with me. He's working 2 locals south for less money, so that he can have a job right now. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like, so that's, I don't even know what his commute is. I haven't even bothered to figure it out, but it's like, damn, dude. Like, so it's like you said, it still has not recovered. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So I
weird.
mean, like that's something to consider too is locations. Money is great, but money doesn't matter when the well is dry. So
Yep.
uh, let's move along into some of your. So you made it to Boise or
Yep.
Meridian now. You had some foreman experience back in California, running some work, field foreman stuff like working foreman, and then you went from making buku bucks in California to Idaho, which is right to work state, and yeah,
A little
pretty
different.
big hit, right? So what's
Yeah.
that like?
Honestly, that was an eye opener. I'll say if one thing, like, again, I came from like the local to be from. I think it's, I haven't actually seen the verbiage, but I think I've been told it's in 38's contract that they will be the highest paid local. So if anybody else gets a raise, they automatically get a raise, regardless of what was in the last bargaining contract. So yeah, to go from that to like, and again, I just assumed that's what it was. I mean, the benefits, I was just like, well, that's just what you get when you're in the union. I knew that the hourly wage would be different. Like I did that much research, right? So I didn't expect to get up here and still be, $75 on the check for just, throwing the pipe in or doing whatever they needed me to do. But I knew the pay cut would happen. But it was kind of an eye opener when, I think the first time the take the kids into the doctor or whatever, and like I went from $10 copay no matter what it was. You know what I mean? Our both of our boys $10 copay. That's it. You know what I mean? Like I had shoulder surgery, $10 copay. That was it. Up here, I get the first bill, and I'm like, what is this? The hell is this? So if you are gonna move, do a little more research than I did. Like, and again, I'm probably just a dummy for not knowing that not all unions are the same, but that was an eye opener. But the quality of life is the biggest thing. I mean, it's like you said, it all the money in the world is great when there's the money, but then even when there's the money, if work's steady, but like so I was an hour, generally speaking, drive time in the morning to whatever job, depending on where I was at in the city, right? And I lived in Santa Rosa. That 1 hour in the morning could be I always gave myself a buffer. I tried to be, parked at least a half hour early in case there's an accident or whatever. You know what I mean? Give yourself time so you can be on time in the morning. So you're not, hey, this happened. I'm going to be late again. Nobody wants that
Right.
guy all the time. It's good. They'll take it every once in a while, but if you're that guy all the time, it's not good. And I don't like the stress. You know what I mean? It's a knife fight in traffic anyway, and you don't want to have to deal with that. So give yourself some time to be there in the morning. So leave it 2 hours before work, and then that hour, 2 hours in the morning, I've had it take me up to 5 hours to get home from San Francisco. That is too much for anybody. You know what I mean? Like that's enough to drive a man to drink in traffic, and that's not ain't good for anybody either. So
No, it's
it,
not.
it's I was saying before I got on, this is the closest I've ever been to work. I'm 24 minutes to the high rise that I'm working on right now, and I'm home every night. That's and again the quality of life on top of that. So I'm closer than I've been, and I'm here. So
Yeah.
it's the politics align a lot better with me. Most of the people around here for the most part are, I get along with a lot better than the crazy yahoos you see in most of California. I mean there's a lot of stereotypes, but a lot of them are true also. So
And you're what? Fucking where you're at? You're 45 minutes from the mountain.
yeah.
That's nice too. Being able to get outside the city, get out and do what you love outdoors, and
Yeah.
experience life for what it is. That's pretty sick. So, what's your day? What's the day in the life of a fitter? Talk our
Oh
audience
man,
through that. I want our guys to understand some of the stuff that you guys do, some of your scope of work.
it's a variety bag, and honestly that's like, I think to me that's the best part of it. Like I said, I'm not a cubicle guy, but I also like, there's some people, some guys, like, get on with a steady company. If you're good with it, try to get into the shop. You know what I mean? If you like that, I've been in and out of fab shops. Like it's good for a while. Like it's great. If you want to learn to be a better fitter, go work in a company that does a lot of fitting in their pipe shop. you will spend more time fitting and dealing with awkward, goofy prefab shit actually. And it's great for rigging too, because having to move that shit around in the fab shop, like to get it to and from the positioners, I think that's really what made me, that and my instructor going through the apprenticeship was probably the best things that ever happened for my rigging skills, is the, working at the fab shop and then having a guy that was like, I'm tired of getting guys that don't know what the fuck they're doing. So we're going to grind this shit into your guys' heads and you're going to be better for my anxiety at work, basically. But, I mean, it doesn't, the limitations are the job, right? And you might get pigeonholed, like I said before, but at the same time, like I do things I've never done before almost all the time. You're going to be running a rotohammer drilling hangers. You're going to be, building hangers, building different supports. If you're into it, there's welding opportunities. Sometimes you'll do, it's not technically structural because then it becomes the iron worker's job, right? But like supplemental steel, if you got to come off of an I-beam somewhere to, to hang pipe in an awkward spot that's too far out to, to do it otherwise, to just run other hangers. But I mean, copper pipe, steel pipe, you might be gluing PVC, and even at
So
that,
you learn
soldering,
how to braze and stuff too then?
soldering, brazing. You might glue, PVC or CPVC. I've done very little of it, but they call it welding, but it's like a heated element for the PVC, where you put it up against this goofy hot plate thing like a panini maker, and then slam the two pieces together, and it's welded pipe. But as a guy that welds pipe, here and there, I don't consider that welded pipe. But it's just, I mean, you never know. The job that you end up on is going to determine, what's happening. But I mean, I've done everything from, built drug plants to running hydronic systems, which is essentially like, comfort heating, like HVAC, but using boilers and chillers instead of, what I mean, instead of refrigeration. And even at that, we run, we run reefer systems, on fitter jobs also. But and then to Chobani, what I mean, making food process stuff. So there's an endless variety of what you can do. Power plants, I've never done a power plant job, but there's a lot of guys that do that, and I mean, they get into that niche, and that's what they do. We were talking before, Micron, they make semiconductors and microprocessors and stuff like that. I haven't been out there yet, but there's work that's supposed to kick out there this spring, and if they're paying what I hear they're paying, I'm gonna be out there. So I'm gonna have to learn something about that. But
Yeah.
it's, I mean, there's an endless variety of what you can do. Even some working on equipment, and that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And that's another great way to be an asset is, I drive a Gradall, a forklift. I mean, scissor lifts, boom lifts, knuckle boom. There's climbing ladders. I mean, whatever, whatever you could want to do. Rigging, talking to the crane guy. I mean, that one's a new one for me. I've never done it before this job that I'm on right now, but done plenty of rigging and signaling, but I've never been the guy, talking to the tower crane operator until a couple months ago. And, I know my rigging, and I know the other aspects of the job and everything else that's going on. So it's not a thing, when my foreman's like, are you good doing that? I'm like, never done it before, but I mean, I could talk and I know what I'm doing. So, what's the hang up? Let's give it a shot.
Good. He's not beating you up too much, that operator?
No, I mean, it just, again, it's kind of weird because it's not like I'm talking to somebody I don't know, right? And really, I kind of see him, but not really. And it's just, so when I got up onto the deck, I'm like, hey, I'm the guy on the radio waving at you. What do you want to hear? You want me to just stand here and let you do it, since you can basically see the canhole you're dropping into? Do you want me to, you want me to just tell you when to stop? You want me to, 5 feet, 10 feet, 2 feet, stop? What do you want? Just find out, just like a new girlfriend, you know what I mean? You just tell me what you want and I'll do my best to give it to you.
Yeah. That's always a good way to do it. They got a lot going on, as you've seen, I'm sure, a
Yeah.
lot. So from that perspective, we have to wouldn't get your needs, but then also know critical path and like try to break you in, because what you're doing is important as well. But like, so is pouring out or hanging iron or flying
Oh
bar.
yeah.
Like, dude, like it's a lot to manage. A lot of people think we just sit up there and pull levers, but if you've ever had a radio, you quickly realize, especially on a bigger job like on a high rise, once it's fucking going, dude, like I'm managing 8 different things at once and trying to keep
Yeah.
everybody working. And a
Yeah.
lot of the time, it's funny you say that, because you're talking to a guy that a lot of the time, like, you don't know necessarily even what he looks like. He's up there before you get to the job site. He comes down a lot of the time after, or you don't see him on his way out because we're kind of in out, no big deal. And then we also not always talk. A lot of the time we just listen, right? Like,
Yep. Yeah.
So I bet you that was a bit of a trip to you too. You're talking to this thing in the air that's way up there that you're expecting, like, you're going to have a guy that wants to have a full on, like, blah, 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 blah. A lot of the time they're just like, yeah, whatever you want to do. And that's what you
Yeah.
get from them.
Yep.
And then,
Yeah. I think there's at least two dudes, and one of them's a little more chatty than the other one. And it's like, and I just kind of assumed that it's like, it's Tuesday, I just assume you're the dude I was talking to yesterday. Is like, yeah, I've never done this before. I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, copy that. You're a new guy. Yeah. No, it's been interesting because, like I said, having being the guy talking to the guy, like I learned a little bit. I've never seen what the inside of your crane looks like, but we're dropping risers down cans, and they're 40-foot risers we're dropping, and because of the poor schedule and our crane schedule, we were dropping them through. So 4 would have been 40's 4, and then another 20. So 6 through 6 sleeves through the poor decks that I was dropping these risers, and they got on average, depending on which one it was, an inch and 5/8 of clearance, right? So it's not just like, yeah, just drop it and I'll tell you when to stop. You know what I mean? It's like easy, easy, easy. And I got, my apprentices and my helpers are on the other end of either phones or other radios that he's not hearing, running down there and making sure that our pipe doesn't catch the sleeves as they're dropping down, and like jockeying back and forth between yelling at them, telling them what they need to do, and like asking this guy to slow down or pull back. One time we caught a sleeve, and I just see the line goes slack, and I'm like, pull it back up about 2 feet real quick, please. And just, cool as a cucumber, like no response. It just goes back up. I'm like, I kind of sort of thought he was going to yell at me, actually, but yeah, it's different, but it's been a learning experience, and that's what all of it is. I mean, everything new is an experience and an opportunity to learn something else and to be that much more valuable. And I think that's what, you get into those weird situations where, where the whole world changes, and you don't know when you're going to get your check. And that's being the guy that's not going to say, well, I've never done that and I don't want to. And the guy that's got a lot of just random experience. I think that's what kept me on as long as it did. You know what I mean? That's why it took me 2 years to get, my final check from them. Is, I'm not a yes man, you know what I mean? But if there's something that needs to be done and it's in my, it's in my job description, like, well, I've never done that before, but it'll be something else, another feather in my cap that, I'll know how to do after I'm done with this. So.
And that's the important of also, like, we talked about this on Kyle Kutz's episode that we recently released, and but we talked about, like, not pigeonholing yourself, right? Like,
yeah,
don't just do the shit that you're good at or the shit that you like, but learn to be as dynamic as you can. Like, literally, like, go and attack the things that you suck or that you don't like, so that you can become proficient in them, and, like, to a mastery level even. That way
yeah,
you are the biggest, baddest asset, not badass, but baddest asset, right? That there is on the job site, because you understand just that much more. And the more that you know, the more experiences you collect, the more knowledge you stack, the bigger your check gets, the bigger your opportunities present themselves, the more leverage you hold. I mean, this show's about winning and about leveling up. So for the people that are looking just to get by, don't listen to that. You go ahead and pigeonhole yourself and just be the one skill guy all you want. And that's fine. The world needs those too. Like Andy Frisella says this all the time, but the world needs fry cooks. Be the best fry cook you can. Like, and by all means, for those people that's you just want to go home and do that, you're not necessarily driven beyond more. Like, there's no judgment from any of us. Like, that's your thing, cool. But this show is for the guys that want to own their own company or want to scale and make more money or want the new truck, want the bigger house, that want to be a better example for their kids, want more out of life, right? And so for you guys, you don't pigeonhole yourself. You get to good at one thing. But get not good, fuck good. Get great. Become excellent at one thing. Fuck good. Excellence. And then take your weakness and attack that next weakness, or find another soft spot and attack that. And, oh, this opportunity came up. Maybe the timing's not right now, but don't shy away from a good challenge. Don't shy away from a fight, essentially, like when it comes to fighting for the career and the life that you want, right? I mean, and you've done that in every move you made, from trying to figure out like fast food to grocery store to Wyotech, and then trying to build rock crawlers and do that, to fab shop, to then at 31 years old, jumping in the union, going through apprenticeship, starting over again, knowing that short-sighted, it might seem long, but long-sighted is short. I know that sounds controversial coming out of my mouth, but like legitimately that's what it is, right? It's literally learning to understand that long is not actually long, it's actually short in the grand scheme of things. And when you think short, you're actually denying yourself of the long-term benefit, right? Like, and if you 100%. If you can fully like learn to let that go, then I mean, this is about making you more dynamic. So if you're listening to this, I promise, like, please hear what I'm saying. Like, this is just ways to teach your mind to help get you to make that step, that scary, aggressive first step, because playing it safe, that's not the route, bro. That's how you exist.
Yep.
I want to thrive, and you're that way. And so to take it back, to bring it back in, man, let's get into some advice that you may have for some of our brother and our sisters out there that are doing stuff, right? So I don't want to get into the frequently asked questions yet. We're going to get into that in just a second, because I do have some questions for you. But I do want to know, like, give me some leadership advice for the fitters specifically out there, the guys that are looking into it. What are some things, like, even just leadership advice in general for guys in the trades, right? Like, we'll take away the constraints here. But what do you got for me, man? I know you're a wealth of knowledge. You're a great dude. We've talked for shit. I've been talking to you since about the time you journeyed out now.
Yeah.
Through
it's about
hunting
right.
and other stuff, right? So give me some leadership advice here, man. Give our audience some. Let them see the Chris that I know.
I think the best thing about, and I mean, even you don't even have to be in the foreman role, but like you're gonna be a leader, right? No matter what, at some point in the job, whether it's just like you got the apprentice for the day or whatever. But like, I mean, and there's, you got to beat them up a little bit, right? You got to beat up the apprentice and the helper a little bit, but that's just part of the thing. But don't be, don't be personal about it. Teach them stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I will almost apprentice for them as often as possible to let them do things. I mean, and don't, it's like your kids, right? Like, you see the mistakes they're going to make before they do. And to a point, you kind of got to let them, but at the same time, be there and be ready to catch them, right? So like, I'll kind of flip flop back and forth, like, and it depends also, like, obviously the pace you're on, like the job you're on, whatever, like that's going to dictate how much you're able to let them like fall and skin their knees and shit, and then have to figure it out, versus how often you basically just give them something where they can just shut their brain off and just do exactly what I'm telling you right now, because we got to go. You know what I mean? It's time to run. Like, you don't have time to learn how to walk. We got to run. But if you, like you said, we've all made the mistakes, and so we know where those mistakes are going to be, and you can kind of you can kind of set them up, you know what I mean? Put them in a position where you know where they're gonna have the best opportunity to learn both how to do the job and how to do it right, and let them hit their head, but
Yeah.
then be there to show them and then explain it. Don't just, don't be that guy that's, my mom's best line when she was mad when I was younger was because I'm the mom and I said so, right? Like, and that was,
Yeah.
end of a long day and I'm being a knucklehead shit. Like, but explain it, tell them why, like, because I never like, and I mean, I'm a smart ass, so that was usually just when I started laying into her even more and making things even more difficult and getting yelled at usually. But again, I'm a knucklehead, so um, just explain why things need to be done the way they need to be done, like and the timing. Letting them, like I said, let them hit their head. You know what's going to happen. You can see it ahead of time, and you're almost kind of setting them up, which is good. Again, like I said, you got to beat them up a little bit, have fun with them, like the whole apprentice role, and they're there to for comic relief and to do all the shitty stuff you don't want to have to do, but teach them stuff like you'll see those guys where they don't want to, and I think you talked to Kyle about this, where like they don't want to teach you stuff or teach anybody anything because, well, then he's going to be better than me. He's going to take my job. That kid, that apprentice, whatever,
Should be better than
if
you
you,
when you're done with
right,
him.
yes, and if you're worried about him taking your job, you're not doing your job. You need to step it up. You know what I mean? You need to level your game up if you're worried about that kid taking your job. But in the long run, that kid is who's going to make sure your retirement is there. So you need him to be better than you are right now when you're sitting at home collecting that retirement. Because if you don't teach him anything because you're afraid he's going to take your job, your local's gonna fall apart after you retire. You know what I mean? If you're carrying that whole thing by yourself, when you retire, it goes away. You know what I mean?
He's
So
also a direct representation of your abilities.
yeah.
You know what I'm
So
saying? That is a reflection of your teaching ability, your level of knowledge, your baseline. I mean, like that's an accountability thing that people don't want to hear, but it's the truth. I mean, and there's a
yeah,
noticeable difference between apprentices that got it and apprentices that are just gophers, as you said earlier, like that they just get ran around. They don't really know nothing. They're third year or fourth year even, and they're still like, dude, nobody ever taught you this. No, my last foreman just made me run and get this, or he had me do all this. He just did all the shit he didn't want to do. Is what he like. Take the time to get gritty with them. Like
yeah,
from a leadership role, and like Kyle said, he loves to get down and like show them and like encourage them to ask why so that they fully understand. And there is a time and a place for asking questions. I mean, we're bulldogs too, people. This is a fucking dog eat dog world on a job site, but don't be the guy that nobody wants to approach, you
yeah,
know? And like, as you're talking about, you said something earlier that really resonated with me about being the guy that you'll almost apprentice for them to a point, right? Like you'll go back and forth, you flip to be that role. When I get asked to check a guy out in a crane or whatever, or I have an oiler that he knows how to build the crane really well or whatnot, but he maybe doesn't have a bunch of seat time. And some of these kids, they can even put certain cranes better together than I can because they just do it every day and I don't, right? Especially on some of the bigger crawlers and stuff. I show up and run them a lot now versus like go and put them together every day. So some of these kids are even, they're better than I am at some of that shit. But there's something to be said about like being able to get out of the seat and be like, hey, hop in there. And like, yeah, this kid knows what he's doing, but then like talk him through it a little bit. Like, yeah, like right here, like you see where you're at right there. Yeah, boom. I'd boom up a little bit right there. And then like I'm lining up and doing this. And, next thing you know, you're looking at this kid and yeah, he knows how to put the crane together, but you're helping him put it together, like learn how to put the skill set together and see
yeah,
how you do things and run. Like, I'm not afraid to go stand on the side of the track or get out of the seat. And like, I'll even teach my bellman, right? Like you see right here where my boom is, if I'm trawling out really hard right here, I can take all the energy and the inertia from the energy and clean my block up at this. And I'll show them that. And then they'll be like, holy shit, little things. So you really resonated with me when you were saying almost I apprentice for them, because at the end of the day, dude, it's your job to be their best resource, their
yeah,
biggest ally, but their best resource,
yeah. And I think another thing for leadership, a lot of people, again, you get into that foreman role and like people think that they got to know things, right? Don't
Nope.
don't think you got to pretend you know stuff. Then, and I'll tell people that all the time. Like if I, hey, go take the kid and do whatever. Tell them, hey, I've never done this before. I've done a lot of things that look like this. You know what I mean? I've done a lot of things. I have not done this. We're going to learn together. You know what I mean? And if anything, and again, I'm sarcastic. I'll tell people a lot. When we're done with this, you're going to know what not to do because you're going to see me make some mistakes. But it is what it is. You know what I mean? And don't, that's something else too. If you flat out don't know what you're doing and it's probably going to fuck something up, tell them, because if you're costing people money having to redo things a lot, you're probably not going to hang out that long. But if it's but at the same token, if you're always asking, if you're always asking the boss what, like, hey, I don't, how do you want me to do this? Like nobody wants to have to hold your hand all the time either. But like if you're coming out and saying, hey, look, I don't really fully understand what's happening here, like, or what needs to happen. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to say you don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? Because it's in the long run, it's going to be better for everybody. It's easier to do things right the first time than it is to have to fix, especially if it's horribly fucked up.
Yeah. And don't get in the habit of having to do rework either. I mean, that's just terrible. But I mean, dude, this conversation has been great. Let's jump into the Q&A while we're just on it. Let's get into the frequently asked questions, because your answers right now are crushing it. And while I got your mind on it, let's send these people home with some fucking wisdom, right? So I got to ask you, dude, it's the flagship question of the show. The flagship question. All my barbarians, I want to know, what is a blue collar barbarian to you?
Just, I mean, like, like we touched on, just the guys that are hungry, you know what I mean? Like the guys that aren't just there to be, a neck down set of hands, the guys that are looking for the next thing, the next, even if it's a lateral to get you, to get you over so you can get up. But I mean, finding that level up, I mean, looking for the next challenge, trying to do that shit that, like, I don't know anything about that. And honestly, it's kind of intimidating, but I need to know how to do that. You know what I mean? Like the guys that aren't just gonna sit there and watch things passing by. You know what I mean? The guy that's ready to step through that door when opportunity knocks. I mean, or gal. I mean, for that matter, there's a lot more blue collar gals out there, I think, than I'm used to seeing. There's actually quite a few more of them around here than what I was used to out of 38. But I mean, it just, the people that aren't there to settle, like you said, fuck good, right? Like we're not here to do a good job. We're here to kill it and then accept the next challenge. I mean, and keep going. I think it was on one of the episodes, you're saying like the top, right? Like that is, you're looking to climb to the place where you're going to go to die, not just to stop here because, well, I've reached this goal. Like that's just a step on the way, man. You gotta keep going. Like there's no, the end is where there's no more steps to take. You know what I mean? If you're not to the top of the mountain yet, you're not to the top. That's all there is to it. You got to keep going, keep climbing.
Yeah, that quote you're referencing that I say, and I'll share this with you because I love this, dude. But I came up with this a couple of years ago. It's almost like a mantra. It's not quite a mantra for me, but it's very much it's the top is where you stop, right?
There you go.
That's what it is, because like every time you think you're at the top of your game, you could lateral over. It's almost like false summiting, right? I call it a never summit mentality. Like, because every time I think I'm going to be at my peak, I realize that that's just that, another peak. And then there's a valley and I got to cross this. I got to start climbing up this next thing. So like literally, legitimately, the top is where you stop in all cases of this. So that's been really interesting for me to try to wrap my mind around, right? Like, and it's actually helped me quite a bit in just being aggressive with careers. Moving right along with this, just because I want to respect your time. What are some considerations for people that are looking to get into a blue collar trade, or how they should pick one? I know yours just kind of fell into, you were welding and fabricating and somebody showed you a check and you were like, what do you do? But I mean,
Yeah.
like,
How
what
do
are
I
some
get that?
things people should think about?
Look at the long term. I mean, so it's if 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 you are considering getting into a blue collar trade, look at for the most part, there's you're gonna like we touched on before, you're gonna have to be near some kind of a hub, and if you can deal with the commute to be somewhere outside of that, if that's where you'd rather be in the mountains or whatever, you can look at a map, give yourself 45 minutes an hour and draw a circle, and if you can get to somewhere that looks like peace and tranquility for you from that, and then look at the options. You know what I mean? You got ironworkers. They're if you want to weld and beat on stuff, you like using a hammer. You know what I mean? That's a great you could do that. Or I mean, the where we're at now, there's ironworkers that are out with the glazers, so they're a little like it's like a weird combination of, I mean, what do they, guess they're like a rubber mallet, right? They're definitely still a hammer, but they're working around glass, so they got to be a little more finesse than your typical steel banging ironworkers. If you're not really big on cleaning up and you like lighter stuff, maybe be a Sparky. No, I mean, it just look at what you if you've got some mechanical aptitude, look at what you enjoy doing, and then just kind of look at trades that go with that. Like I said, uh, people call us mechanics. I've heard that reference made a lot. There's definitely some correlations. Like when we get into building mechanical rooms and stuff like that, there's a lot of we got pumps and things that are getting turned on and started, and it's there's similarities to working on cars and stuff like that, and the wrenching that I did before this. But like, just find what you enjoy that's in, what I mean, that kind of looks like something like one of the trades, and then just go get in. I mean, like I did, just go get in the BA's ear, look it up, find where your local hall for whatever that trade is, and be that squeaky wheel, honestly. You know what I mean? Go
Yeah,
introduce yourself, tell them why
for
they need
sure.
you. And if like I said, if it, like with 38, if you got to take a test to get in, sometimes you might have to wait, because like I said, with 38 it was a 2-year schedule. So luckily when I started pursuing it, it was right at test time basically. So I took a test, then started waiting, and then I became the squeaky wheel when I was about ready to time out and have to take the test again. But some of them you can, and if things are booming, I mean, if things are busy, you might you know you might be able to go start right now, kind of thing. Uh,
Right.
where I'm at now, they've got a helper program where you can kind of try the trade on and do a bunch of bitch work and materials moving and stuff like that. But I mean, you're going to see the guys doing what it is you think you're going to want to do. So, but just
And
go
you're going
go
to
talk
build
to,
your network, right?
yeah, yeah, and honestly, that's a great way to start if that's how the local you're looking at is structured. Be hungry. You know what I mean? Don't just, oh, I'm just a helper. Like, no, no. Be be the pre-apprentice, you know what I mean? Or be the pre-journeyman. Like, look at whatever it is you want to be that now, and let those guys
Yes.
see that. And that will, you go a long ways, just, being a step ahead of where you're at. Not, I mean, be where you're at, do your job, but like let them know that you're already aiming for that next step before it's even official, before they even let you in. Be that guy that's trying to be there already.
Yeah, I love it, dude. So moving right along again. What is your favorite part of the job? Like, what's your favorite part of what you're doing, being a fitter?
Like I said, the variety's cool, because any day it's going to change. But I love welding and I love rigging. It's both of them are things that kind of will put people off, because I mean, rigging, if you screw it up, it can be bad, right? Like you can kill people. I mean, things get wild, and but it's a brain workout, right? When you get some of those weird pieces or offsets, and you got to try to like drift things, spin things, stand something that's laying down on the ground or on dunnage or on a truck bed upright, and then shift it in the air, do that kind of stuff. Like, it's challenging, but it's not like, I don't know what's that. it's not a, it's more of a mental exercise, right? And I think that's a big part of this too, is like your brain, your brain has to stay sharp. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of,
Yes.
again, there's a lot of neck down guys. There's a lot of barbarians on job sites that aren't the blue collar barbarians, or just, you know what I mean? Just a big meathead that's like, hey, you come wrestle this thing around because it's big and it needs to move. You know what I mean? But you got to keep your brain sharp, and I don't know, you kind of get into those like almost that Goodwill Hunting thing where you just start seeing things move in your head and you know what needs to happen before it has to happen, and you can just put the pieces together.
Yeah. No, that's solid. That's solid, dude. That's actually killer advice right there too about keeping your brain sharp. Your mental is half the battle. But that's cool that rigging is one of your favorite things. Rigging is next level. Like there's something new every day. You can rinse, wash, repeat a lot of it. But then there's other shit like you were saying. I gotta, even as a guy that does this for a living. Like sometimes I pick shit up. I just gotta figure it out as I'm picking it up. How the fuck we gotta rig it? Like
Oh yeah.
that's just the way it goes. Like everything it could be the same looking shit as what you just did, but it's heavier on one end, and oh shit,
Hmm.
or I need it to float a certain way, right? So I need to offset some length so that this end can stab or fit through this or some under this, all sorts of dog leg bullshit.
Yep.
Um, so the last question I got for you is, what is three things that someone could do to stand out on the job site as a fitter, or even just in general? I'll take either. But what are three things that would make somebody more dynamic right away? Like that you when you look at it, you're walking across a job site. What's something you notice about somebody?
Be, again, like we talked about, be ready for a challenge. You know what I mean? Like try to, eh, like, and again, just like the advice for the guys coming up, just find that next thing. You know what I mean? Look to be better than you are. And I
Yeah.
mean, and again, own it. Hey, I don't know how to do that, but I want to learn. I want to know how to do that. You're everybody. You're, the guy, the journeyman you're working with, whatever, your foreman, the guys above them in the office are going to hear about it. Just be looking to have more skills, and make yourself more valuable. Always be, looking for something else, and like you said, find the things you don't know how to do and learn it to mastery level. Um, we do dirty work, but that doesn't mean, you notice the guys that show up, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, you're standing at the hooch and this guy looks like he's already been rolling around under his car. Like you don't have to be that guy. I mean, don't show up
Personal
ready for,
hygiene is a
yeah,
real thing. It
yeah.
really is a thing.
You don't have to show up ready for a photo shoot, but you know what I mean? Like clean and not smelling like BO is a nice thing, nice way to start your day. And if you can finish your day that way, I mean, that's a plus too. But, and just be prompt, be on time. It's
Ooh,
not that hard to do.
timeliness.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is. Like I said, when I was driving to the city, it's shit. When I first got out here, there was times I was driving 2 hours a day, or 2 hours either way to and from where I was at. And especially
Right.
as a foreman, like you don't want to be late. You know what I mean? You don't want your guys having to stand around because, oh well, there was a accident on the road. I was doing it in the wintertime, and I would leave 3.5 hours before I had to be there, just because you didn't know. You know what I mean? I knew I was going to be on the road before the plow trucks, and I knew that I was at some point gonna be behind somebody that's doing 35 miles an hour with their hazard lights on because they're terrified of driving in the dark in the snow, or there was going to be a semi truck doing 40 miles an hour driving down the middle of both lanes, and I was going to have to find my window to safely try to shoot past him. You know what I mean? It takes a little bit more. It sucks having to get up, you know what I mean, that much earlier when you got to do it, but just redo your schedule and be prompt. I mean, you're getting paid, a decent wage to be there when you're supposed to be there. Do what you got to do it, and be ready. You know what I mean? Don't show up asleep, you know, at the buzzer, and all right, hold on, give me 15 minutes. I got to drink this coffee, and then I'm going to ask you again what you just told me because I'm not paying attention to what you just said. You you know.
Yeah, I do for sure. No, those are solid. So timeliness, personal hygiene, and then being hungry.
Yeah.
Just an aptitude for learning, essentially, right? An eagerness and a willingness. That's incredible. Um, Listen, dude, closing the show out, typically we ask people, like, if you have any book recommendations, like you kind of said about sharpening your brain and stuff like that. That I think that's a really big missed thing for guys in the trades, especially so guys like me. You're at. It's funny, like you're at like year 6. And I remember it's funny being there. Well, if you count your apprenticeship, what, you're 10 now, about 9, 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but let's just say being a journeyman, you're at year 6, and I remember like that where you're at, kind of like, and being like, well, what, like you're kind of in the middle, right? Like, what do? You take on some leadership roles here and there, but it's kind of almost redundant at this point. You have a great attitude, so you're able to keep it fresh and stuff like that. And especially being just a little bit older, you do way better than I did. I was younger at this, and I'm just squirrel, right? But I think it's really important. You got to keep your mind sharp, and you got to keep yourself more dynamic. This is something I wish I would have been better at. Not, but hey, lessons learned, right? I'm 10 years in now, 11 years in, and now I know but I also am smart enough to look ahead and be like, I don't want to be the guy that's done this for 20 years and that's doing this. Like, as skilled as they are, as great of people as they are, that's not what I want. I don't want to be beat up, broke down. I want to grow. I want to offer more. I want to be able to go and enjoy things and be there for my kids, especially doing the crane thing. That's not a thing, right? So do you have any, you have a quote or books or any suggestions or anything you'd like to leave us with tonight, Chris?
Yeah, it's funny. So when I read that in the outline, the first thing that pops up, and it's funny because I don't like, I don't, I got mixed feelings on the guy, and it's a Eminem, right? Success is the only motherfucking option. Failure's not, and it's, you know, this switch to being the sole provider when we moved up here. So my wife's now a stay-at-home mom. She homeschools our boys, and that was a big part of the jump up here too. And it really is. I mean, that's how I look at things now. 100%. Before, like, you know, uh, and again, things were booming like we talked about before. Where if
Yeah.
I got laid off, I could make a phone call and be out to work again and no problem. But it's still, there's going to be that hiccup and things are going to get rolling again. That's not a thing now. You know what I mean? Like, I do not have that luxury. It is like 100%. It's kill and repeat. You know what I mean? I gotta go out there and kill it every day and just keep moving. And it's, so that's, I mean, that's it. That's the mentality. But a book, I just started looking at this. My wife actually gave it to me. It's called Progress, and if you want, I don't have it handy, so I can't remember the author's name, but it's basically it's kind of a coached, like, goal setting. You get into it and there's an intro, and it'll break the whole thing down for you. Is like, pick 3 goals, set them, give yourself a timeline, and then you go. There's a calendar in there, and you go through it daily, and it's like, steps and everything. So it's, for me, like, work wise, like, is the best. Like, I'm good at this on the work side of things. I get into, like, personal life and everything, and, like, I'm not, like, I don't achieve on the level that I do with work, right? It's weird. Like, I know I don't question myself in work. I get into, like, the real me. I take off the Superman cape, and I'm Clark Kent when I come home, and it's like I'm a lot more hesitant about things and goal setting and stuff like that. So it's kind of weird. So this for me, like, it's been good because it's, if I can get that work mentality in my real life, you know what I mean? I think it's gonna help me all around, obviously. You know what I mean? You just, you get your brain going, like we are saying earlier, with the, keeping your brain sharp, and it really does change things, and you'll just see your whole trajectory and your path change. So, like I said, I'll get you that, after the fact. And I mean, put it in the notes or
Sure.
whatever for anybody that wants to look at it. But I'd recommend checking it out if you struggle with achieving goals or even figuring out how to set them, because that's something, again, like, I know what I want to do, but, like, how do you how do you figure out how to set that path to really manifest it without, without a path, you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
really spelled out. And then just look at look at people, look at people and listen to people. And if what they're doing and saying, resonates, there's probably a reason. So just start paying attention, you know what I mean? And like you said earlier, I don't know if you noticed that before now, but
Yeah.
you probably recognize
I
that.
saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I keyed in on you actually on this here podcast right here. First time I heard this dude's voice, I was, and I think I told Guy this, and I might have told you this, but like I felt like it was my sentiments with someone else, coming out of somebody else's body, and it was at a time where I was really still trying to figure out, what the hell I was doing. I was kind of just waking up and pulling my head out of my ass, really, and and I
Yeah.
heard your passion and your drive, and I was like, this guy's about something, dude. I need to watch what this guy's doing. Like there's this strikes a nerve and it resonates with me. And so I was pretty stoked when you started the barbarian movement, and I'm happy to be part of it, and I like where it's going, man.
No, dude, I appreciate that, and I'm thankful for it. And that hat you're wearing, that the gorilla head is gonna
Yep.
come back into this. I do. That's my favorite logo I've had designed yet, and you're gonna see it again. And like in some way in this, it will be probably a series of. I don't know what I'm gonna do with that, but it's not dead. But with this barbarians thing, for sure, um, movement. Yeah, I mean, people have no idea. This is awakening. Like
Yeah.
that's what this is. This is a call to action for excellence and for people to step up and to do outside of what your passions and your hobbies are, chasing critters on the mountain or whatever your accessories are. Like this is how you crush it for the things that really matter, like your family and you, and that allows you. Because I got sick and tired, and this is no attack on anybody, but I got sick and tired of seeing dudes brag about driving a 93 Toyota and working 9 months of the year so they could take 3 months off to chase animals in the high country. And like, these are the people that people are idolizing. Kids are idolizing this. And like, although that works for you, like, I don't think that the majority of the world needs to live mediocre or
No.
passively. I think passively is pussy. Like, sorry guys, but like, that's just my personal thing. And this is not an attack on anybody that does want to live a more passive and paused and mediocre life. Like that's for you. But there's enough of that already.
Yep.
What there's not enough of is go-getters. There's not enough men like you that at 31 years old are brave enough to try the fuck again. There's not enough guys like you that are willing to like, oh shit, like that's a reality. Just looking at somebody's paycheck and be like, how do I do that? And go and get it. Like,
Yeah.
go get it, bro. And that's what the fuck is missing. So I
Yeah.
appreciate what you're saying and all your support. And over the years, I mean, I've just always just shared me, man. And I got canceled for it a little bit, as you saw. I mean, you've been following me long enough to know I got canceled for being that loud, scary, passionate dude, in the sense of a lot of the people in the industry didn't like that I would say the things that I would say, because I just was a real go-getter. And it is what it is, but it's cool to be able to take, I want to leave you with something too, is that failure is feedback. And I know you know this, but I want to encourage you with this, that in all these things that you've went through and all these little lessons, that, because I know you as an overly critical person of yourself, like all these
Yep.
little failures and setbacks that you've appeared, that's all just legitimate feedback for you to grow. Like all that shit that we're talking about and referencing with Kong and all this other stuff, like, which we're back, baby. We're barbarians now. We're the savage motherfuckers coming to take back what's ours. We're coming to put food back on the table for our friends, for our brothers, for our sisters, to help those around us that are fucking hurting. Like that's
Yep.
what we're back. But on that note, all those little setbacks, all the speed bumps, all the doubt, all the fear, every single fucking bit of it was feedback. And I want to encourage you with that, to make that adjustment in your life too, and to take this, because you're a killer in your own right. You know, you may like playing with pipe and stuff and pipe down holes and doing shit that I'm not necessarily understanding. Be that goofy bastard if you want to take jabs. But you know what you are? You're a great father. You're a great leader. You have a great attitude. And you're a barbarian in your own way. And I respect you for that. And I respect you greatly for that. And that's why I wanted you to be a part of this show. So, I mean, I want to thank you for your time tonight. It's a little later there. You're ahead of me even. But I want to thank you for your time because it's been important to me. I want to leave you with one more thing, a book suggestion. The Magic of Thinking Big by Dr. David J. Schwartz.
Okay.
The Magic of Thinking Big. With what you were talking about in the book that you just recommended about trying to figure out how to manifest it, this goes into talk about the mindset of why it's important to think bigger and to get into this. I think it would really, really serve you. Just so you know.
Nice. Yeah, no, I'll check that out for sure.
And I love it. So the quote that we're ending this motherfucker on is, "Success is the only motherfucking option. Failure's not."
That's right.
Chris McKelvy, my man, I appreciate your time so much tonight, dude. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being kind and complimenting me, even though that we're just getting started. I really appreciate the kind words, dude. I appreciate your support more than anything. Thank you for listening to the show and now coming on the show. How cool is that? The world goes, woo, 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 keeps going around. That's right. And to everybody listening, I just want to take a second to tell you thank you so much for your continued support and listening to the show. Chris appreciates it. I appreciate it. My team appreciates it. All of our guests are loving the feedback. Please keep it coming. We want to know how we can serve you better. So if you want certain questions answered, go ahead and shoot those to me. If you want certain questions from our guests or want to know more, please reach out and I will put you in touch with this. This is a network of killers, and Chris is one of them, and he's one of the kindest guys, so he'd be happy to answer any questions you guys may have. I'm sure we'll link him 100%. In all of our stuff. So Chris, it's been real, dude. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next one, I'm sure.
Right on, man.